It has been far from the exciting offseason that Philadelphia Phillies fans were braced for, as instead the organization has opted to buy into the bargain bin and bring some surprising names to Philadelphia. Well, I want to break down why I think this is the case and why the Phillies seem to be a little bit more financially conscious than I think any of us were expecting, and why their eyes may be on deeper than just this season. So let's dive right into things. And as we know, kind of the situation that has been a pretty quiet offseason for this Phillies team. We've heard plenty of rumors regarding the potential trade of Alec Boehm, with obviously nothing coming to fruition just yet at the time of this recording. We've seen additions like Joe Ross, like Jordan Romano, like Max Kepler, these guys that are solid players, but not quite the needle movers from a World Series perspective that I think we all hope for. Now, Dave Dombrowski did face the music and meet with the media for the first time. Shout out to our very own Luke Arcadian that was in that meeting. But there was one quote that stood out to me that really sounded my panic alarm. And this being from Corey Seidman of NBC Sports here, said, asked about the remaining free agents, Dave Dombrowski said, quote, I would be surprised if we got into impactful free agent signing from an offensive perspective. Phillies are at a point with payroll where anyone they sign basically costs double. Kepler, for example, $10 million contract, but cost them $19.25 million. Now, he was asked in the comments of this a little bit of follow-up for how this worked, and to break down his explanation, did want to follow up with, you're charged 92.5% tax on every dollar over $281 million. The Phillies were already over that number for Kepler and are now between $299 and $300 million from a luxury tax perspective. They're also now only $1 to $2 million away from exceeding the next tax of $301 million, which there is an even harsher penalty. Now, granted, I give a lot of respect to John Milton for being a guy who does not approach this from the most business-minded sense. That this is not one of those owners who is penny pinching, is only worried about the bottom line. He does truly want to win baseball games in a way that I think should be the model for how a sports team is run. But that also comes at a price, and you should not just spend just to spend. You have to make sure you are improving your franchise and giving yourself a chance, and I think that is where the Phillies find themselves. Is there is not that needle-moving guy that they believe is out there, at least on the free agency market, or is worth it to go above these numbers. Now, to address these a little bit, did want to throw it back a little to kind of what these numbers. So this looking over the past two seasons and then up into next season. So stick with me here. But to start off with, this article coming from Forbes, it says the 2023 baseball threshold was $233 million for the luxury tax. 6 2023 MLB teams were required to pay luxury tax penalties. They were the Mets of $100.8 million, the Padres of $39.7 million, the Yankees $32.4 million, Dodgers $19.4 million, the Phillies at $7 million, the Blue Jays at $5.5 million, and the Braves at $3.2 million. Then the 2024 baseball threshold would be $237 million. So to continue on with that, here's a sample of the estimated 2024 MLB payrolls as noted. The Phillies right in the same mix at $239 million, and then to flash forward to 2025, we see this number right up there in the third surcharge. So with the big dogs of the MLB as far as paying money, the Dodgers right there at number 1, the Phillies at number 2, and then the Yankees at number 3. Now the Mets right below them with that second surcharge. They obviously broke the bank with the Juan Soto signing this offseason, although there were some intricacies to how that got done as well, and this coming via Fangraphs. And shout out to Phillies Tailgate, as always, who provides us with a lot of our content on here. So when speaking about this from the full standpoint, why this works from a luxury tax perspective is that the teams that do not want to spend these top dollars, the Oakland A's of the world, or wherever they end up playing this season, they get rewarded by getting some of that tax money back, and that's how the MLB kind of keeps their competitive balance. Now, every sports team or a sports league has a little bit different way they do this. I do think baseball is pretty broken from kind of the standpoint of it, that I understand they're trying to create a little bit more of a competitive balance by rewarding this luxury tax standpoint, but the reality is the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to stay poor. Is sort of how this system is set up from baseball. Now, the Phillies are lucky that they fall in that rich category, that John Middleton truly is an owner that does want to spend. I know the quotes that fire me up speaking about how these championship teams, nobody thinks about how much they paid in the tax. They think about those trophies on the trophy case. But the fact of the matter still comes that has to come to fruition. And I think when looking ahead to what the status of this Phillies team is, reality kind of set in on me. So to pull that up exactly here, this is look at their multi-year cap sheet here. And what I think I'm eyeing up for is we may be a little bit more in on the next generation of this Phillies team than we kind of expect to be the case. Yes, I still believe World Series needs to be the goal year in and year out as long as Bryce Harper is on this team, as long as he continues. And by the way, if anything, he wants an extension. This is not something to say anti-Bryce or him moving on from the Phillies anytime soon. But when you look down the rest of the roster, there is not quite the same sense of cohesiveness or guys in it for the long haul. That yes, Trey Turner is here. That was clearly a high-level investment the Phillies made that he will be around for quite some time. But there is not quite the same security beyond that. If we take a look in the outfielder, that Nick Castellanos coming off the books after next season. Kyle Schwarber coming off after this season. JT Realmuto is coming off after this season. There's a whole lot of arbitration years coming up for a lot of these guys. The point being in all of this that there's going to be a lot of money coming off this books in the fairly short term for this Phillies team. So my mind has gone to, and I'm kind of falling under the realization, this could be a one step back, two steps forward type of process for this Phillies team, that maybe they just need to let this money come off the books, and then that's when they're going to get active in free agency. Maybe it is next season and really the following offseason that I think will really they have money to swim in and play with, but that also brings a pretty bleak reality to this season. I think, unfortunately, there is not a Band-Aid fix for this Phillies team. I still think there needs to be changes. I don't think you can run it back with this same group that we expected, with the Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas platoon in center field, with Alec Boehm at third base, just hoping that he can get back to the player that he was for the start of the season. These are all hopes. These aren't concrete game plans. Do I hope that Johan Rojas can improve at the plate and be at least a competent MLB hitter? Of course. I would love nothing more than that be the case. And I'm still in on Rojas in the long haul here. But is that like the most, I guess, sound gamble that this organization should be making? I don't think so. I really don't. And I think it's been, as a whole, very underwhelming from what we've seen from them. So for this Phillies team, I hope I'm wrong. But I do think that the only way that they kind of attack things through here is through the trade market. I think this is a very telling quote from Dave Dombrowski here, saying that quote, I would be surprised if we got into any impactful free agent signings from an offensive perspective. That is a concerning quote to me. That means that they are not anticipating spending the big bucks and improving this roster, in my eyes, the way that it needs to be improved. Are they still a good baseball team? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And even in all this complaining and sort of, I guess, analyzation of it, I still think they're a top 4 at worst team in the National League. That I think you can make the case the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Braves are better than them. That's the only cases that I'll hear out with this Phillies team. They still got Bryce Harper. They still got Trey Turner. They still got Zack Wheeler, Aaron Nola. They've improved the bullpen, even if it is marginally, and I still think I'm hopeful, and I do believe there will likely be another R&B brought into there. So I don't think they're done for the offseason, but what my adjustment, or I guess my expectations have shifted a little. I think we should stop holding our breath for this massive move that I was waiting on this entire offseason. I thought it was going to be the case. I was hopeful it was going to be the case. I still think there is a slight chance an Alec Boehm trade materializes and the picture kind of shifts, but I think the reality is the Phillies are viewing the long term a little bit more than I would hope or expected them to be the case. And why I have frustration with that is that opportunity is not a lengthy visitor, man. You only get so many cracks at this, and when you have a player like Bryce Harper, one of the premier players in the entire sport of baseball, I think you owe it to that man, that face of the franchise who's been everything the Phillies could have hoped for and more, to go out and try and get it every single year. Now, granted, in fairness to Dave Dombrowski here, that you've done a lot of the work already. You've signed Trey Turner, who you got to hope for there's more to him than we have seen to this point. I've still been underwhelmed, and while it was far better from the far better Trey Turner experience last year, certainly not the guy that I would consider the foundational co-star to Bryce Harper that I think this team is designed around. Kyle Schwarber thought he was just fine last year. He is, as expected, as the designated hitter for this team. Nick Castellanos, one of the hot streaks that we've seen for Cassie. I was pretty satisfied with the version of him we saw on the field and at the plate last year. A really strong playoffs from him. There are good players on this Phillies team, but it's all got to come together. And I guess my concern is this Phillies team is going to get a little bit too cute, trying to bring up the Aiden Millers of the world and make sure that there is a financially friendly game plan, and that a lot of other teams get better around them. That is where my level of concern at. But let me know what you guys think in the comments there. Is this the wrong outlook to this Phillies team, or do you get it? Do you understand the financial standpoint and think they are being smarter in the long-term view? If you win one World Series during this era of Phillies baseball, it's all worth it. But I don't think taking your foot off the gas for a season or two is the right way to chase that there. But let me know if I'm talking crazy here. Drop your comments below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a like on this video if you have not as well. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.